Hi everyone, welcome to episode 37 of A Fern Between Us. Had to check my cheat sheet.
We are two of the four owners here at Pineapple Between Us, and my name is Jesse.
I'm Michelle, and we have literally just landed in our new house for the next 32 days in San Cristobal de las Casas. And so it feels a little rushed as we're running around trying to figure out where's an outlet,
What's the Wi-Fi, where are we going to shoot this, it's been fun.
So
on top of which, or over which, or on top, something, we came from Palenque this morning, and we knew there was a lot of speed bumps going out there. On the way back, I decided to count them. I don't know if anybody's ever counted to 315, like all the way through, but we did that with speed bumps today. Literally almost 6 hours for a 125-mile stretch of road. And the sinkholes, there's probably 50 sinkholes on the way too. So
and they're huge. Like you will lose your car. I mean, it's over. And it comes out of nowhere.
This is almost 6 hours of like hair-raising driving in second gear, which is almost unfathomable.
Which I actually said, slow down.
Right? We ended up in fourth gear, a handful of times. I could count them, It was bad.
Oh. Anyway, so welcome to A Fern or Pineapple Between Us. We're trying to get this together. Last week we were actually in San Cristobal de las Casas. So it's kind of a funny thing. We left off being here in this town and went and had an adventure and then have now come back. And we were right before Thanksgiving. So we did ask people to share some of the unique things that they experienced being in a first-time COVID lockdown Thanksgiving. And it overwhelmingly, people, of course, got on Zoom calls with their family. But a huge one was a lot of people talking about the fact that they have never cooked a turkey because grandma makes the turkey or mom makes the turkey. And now even...
what about dads? Don't dads make turkeys? I make turkeys.
Dads do make turkeys.
Okay.
It just happened to be a lot of women that we're talking about. Yeah. I've never made the turkey because my mom or grandma are still around. And so, yeah, maybe it was grandpa or dad. But...
or grandpa carves the turkey, or dad carves the turkey.
If you're going to get into old stereotypes, whatever. But I thought that was really interesting. So a lot of people shared how excited they were that they figured it out and that it turned out. A lot of people shared some really horrible stories.
Did they? Cool.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's so many people that were like, it's impossible to defrost a turkey. How are you supposed to do it? I thought I had started early enough, and so I thought that was really fun to read through some of those. And then another one that I really loved was that a lot of people got all dressed up, even though they weren't going anywhere.
That's good. You're supposed to. Yeah, you're supposed to. That's awesome.
Yeah, so, a couple of ladies said that they put on their high heels and walked around the kitchen and their feet really hurt.
Right? Haven't been exercising those muscles.
Right?
That's good.
Yeah. So today we are going to taste our Sangiovese. That is one of those classic wines that really kind of goes with anything, and it's one of our most popular. And we're also going to talk about... my computer was dying, so I had to tuck that away and scroll down my notes on a cheat sheet, but I didn't get the awesome wording that you used last week for talking about, keeping, how do you make good solid wines? We were talking about the gunk at the bottom of a bottle.
Wine stability.
Wine stability, yes. So that's our topic for today. Wow, welcome to No Planning. So wine stability questions. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But let's have our winemaker talk about the Sangiovese, and this is one of the original grapes that you guys started making. So
we did. We started early. It's been a staple for us for a long time. When we retired the Dolcetto, we replaced our most economically priced wine with Sangiovese because we thought it was a much better wine.
Representation of your winemaking.
Representation of Vivac Winery in general, and you know, we feel like this is probably our best buy on the whole menu, honestly.
It's won a gold at the Great American Wine Competition, International Wine Competition,
and we don't enter many competitions either. And I don't know. It's the base wine for all of Chianti. All the Brunellos are made out of Sangiovese. Ours aren't in that genre exactly, but the grape itself is such a great grape, a really good grape to use, and it really works well in New Mexico. So we are proud to present this first, you know, and it's our biggest seller. Through distro, through kegs, through everything, we buy more Sangiovese grapes than all other grapes for sure. And we're back, which happens.
These weird pauses where it reconnects. So I did want to mention that with the keg program, this is available in growlers, and I know that with the skyrocketing cases back in the US, that a lot of people are really relying on the, curbside pickup. That's fantastic. So you can refill your growlers still, and we do have beer on tap too, so refill those growlers. And since I'm on that subject, we're back open.
Yeah.
If you're tasting and by the glass, we're operating at 25%, so just keep calling and making your reservations, and then
25% capacity outside. So no inside service whatsoever. So which we weren't doing anyway, but basically it means
get cozy, bring a blanket, and we have these fantastic heaters that we're gonna put good use to. And
or if you spot a warm day, go get a glass of wine. However you want to do, or pint of beer.
Or a tasting,
or a flight.
So one of the things. We get so used to these wines, and we talk about them frequently because as you cycle through, it's our 37th episode, we forget to give you some background information on some of this stuff because we feel like we've talked about it. But we have a lot of new viewership and people saying, that they're watching this, the recording of it, which is great. We're happy to have you live, or we're happy to have you after the fact, which most people are actually tuning in that way. But if you're newer to the show, let's talk a little bit about Sangiovese, the grape itself. Jesse did talk a little bit about, it's the major grape of Chianti, so that's clones. What was it? 7 clones generally make up a Brunello. What were you saying?
I don't remember, but I was gonna say my allergies all of a sudden started going crazy about an hour and a half ago before we got here. I don't know what's up, but
is
Sangiovese.
it pineapple?
No, it was before we got here. Sangiovese is the most widely planted grape in Italy, so it's part of a lot of those blends. Most of those blends, I would say, it'd be a component in most of your wines. And it's just an all-around really, really good wine. It's a little lighter in body in general. Obviously in Brunello, if you know those wines, they've got 3 main ones, but 7 total that they use primarily, and they're able to get some serious extraction off of those grapes. But in general, Sangiovese is gonna be a little lighter, a little, higher in acidity, like we like all the time, Vivac Winery, the way we are. We age this in French oak, but the oak is we try never to make it overwhelming or anything. We try to keep it on the lighter side, especially with this, with our, in the Sangiovese specifically. And,
I felt like the smoke, the oak with the char came through a lot more when it was first bottled. And those first couple of months where it was calming down, which is always a nice thing to see, is that transformation as it ages in the bottle.
What kind of tasting notes you get in this?
I get that it's lovely.
I can't smell because of no, but you know what?
I get a lot of herbal notes. I get a lot of like dried florals, like dried lavender.
And I get a lot of like high fruits like strawberry and red berries.
I get tart cherry.
Tart cherry, yeah. And I just love this wine. Anyway, go great with game meat. I see David Romero's on here. He his daughter just got a white-tailed deer the other day, which
nice.
I was texting with him about. That's awesome.
Oh, and then we went to this amazing zoo in Palenque that is a rehab center for endangered animals that have been hurt, which is kind of funny to say endangered animals, and then I'm going to talk about how we saw a white-tailed deer.
Right, they're not all endangered everywhere, but they had two different kind of deer, which I had no idea about in the jungles, which is wild. I mean, alongside like panthers and cougars and lemurs and all kinds of other stuff. Oh, we saw macaws, actual full-on those red parrots, those massive red parrots flew over.
That was very cool.
We saw
they
crocodiles.
Like
it was amazing.
We saw panthers pacing, but the cool thing about that is that
leopards.
Normally you think, well, a lot of people might think zoo and that it's not good for the animals, and there's
a rehab center. Is what it really was.
And so really you were going into the thick of the jungle, and you just got to see them in more natural habitats. And so we got to sit there and watch the spider monkeys play like crazy. Those are spider monkeys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, panther pace right there, and just incredible. And
howler monkeys, toucans. I saw howler monkeys in the wild. That was sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, we did lots of amazing things in Palenque.
Yeah.
But I think that's an important note, is that if there is a refuge zoo, that your money goes to help them save other animals, and so they release them back into the wild
if they
unless they can't. Yeah, and then they have a home and they aren't euthanized or something like that. So just really off topic note of interest. All right, so I think we're ready for questions, right?
Yes.
People are like, get on with it. Okay, so again, I'm sorry to not be able to quote you verbatim because I was in a hurry and scribbled your questions down. But the first one is, what is the sludge that you sometimes find at the bottom of a red wine in a bottle?
Okay. So
a lot of people freak out about this.
They freak out, and there's no need to. Let your palate be the guide, and if you can do it without prejudice. Because there is such thing as problems that cause that, but there's also such thing as just lack of filtering or lack of some other clarification process,
or the age of the wine.
Or the age of the wine could do it. Like even a wine that wouldn't drop out for 10 years might at 20 years have some sludge on the bottom, and that's perfectly okay. Often it's tartrates, which is crystallized acidity, tartaric acid. Molecules lays in like sugar crystals basically, but of acid, and so that's very common.
And tannins.
And then tannins is the other thing. So if it like leaves a smudge on your thumb, that's usually a tannins.
Yeah.
So
they're talking about red wine.
Yeah, well, either way, the tartrates can.
Right, but seeing that that stain, that several people have actually asked about that. What is that? It sticks to the top of the cork.
Right,
and so some people ask specifically, sometimes I get this goo on the top of the cork.
And those are almost always fine. It's a product of not filtering the wine over, like to finer and finer amounts or whatever.
Which
the
is
other thing
actually, I mean, that's a fine line to walk, because the more you filter a wine, the cleaner it gets, but you're also stripping some of the palate feel, some of those nuances, and some of those things that you might not even realize you do miss. So
that can be a case with over processing. But there's also different, like what Chris and I do for winemaking techniques is like oxidation. So during the fermentation, if it gets air oxygen introduced, it'll bind those tannic chains before they get too long, in which case they would later drop out. But if they're shorter, they stay in suspension, and you end up with all that mouthfeel and all that stuff in there anyway. So
I love it when you talk geeky.
Okay.
So that's a great question. We started to touch on that last week and held it off to this week because I think it's important that everybody gets to really hear, about those aspects. And it seems to me that around the holidays, people are opening more expensive wines, older wines, and that is a concern that often happens is, wait, they pull the cork and there's stuff and they're like, or they get down to the bottom of the bottle and they have enjoyed it, but then they see this sludgy thing in the bottom of their glass and they're like, I think I'm ill. And they have a reaction retrospectively about the wine when the wine was fantastic. So
exactly. It almost always is, but you have to, on a cheap bottle, I'd start worrying about it. On an expensive bottle, I probably wouldn't worry about sludge, honestly, but that's just a rule of thumb. It doesn't mean across the board. I don't know.
I always like to say it's the wine giving you a little extra love. Jesse drinks it.
They don't charge you extra for that.
Yeah. Oh, weird way to go. Okay. The second question is sort of in keeping. So someone wrote in that they bought a white wine from a local winery, and actually not in New Mexico, but just to say, because I think this is a common issue that, oh no, I bought it from a local winery and maybe they're not as good as the big winery, and that's not the case, so we're going to explain that. But it looked great, it tasted great at the tasting room. They put it in a bucket of ice water to chill it down, and they pull it out to serve it, and it looked like it was filled with glass.
Oh wow, I've never had it to that extreme, but it's a well-known thing in the wine world. So they did not cold stabilize their wine, which is what I was talking about last week with Chris. So he's at home, he's getting all the wines prepared to take them outside to chill them down. Some of them may be outside at this point, I'm not even sure, but he chills them down, and then we put a jacket around them and chill them down even further, maintaining a steady 26 degrees or something like that. And we actually,
and this is a temperature control.
Exactly. We
jacket.
actually even,
you think of like, ooh, I'm cold, I'll get warm with a jacket, but it keeps
the warm days out. Is what it does.
Which is kind of opposite.
So what happens, just like when you freeze your tap water for ice cubes, you'll end up with a sediment in there. That's minerality and different stuff falling out of there. The same thing can happen with the acidity in wine and the minerals in wine. And we don't chill red wines down, so we don't see very often in red wines that way. But with white wines, we chill every single bottle down, and the bottle tends to be kind of clear. So you really see it, and those are just tartrate crystals, once again, that just haven't been cold stabilized.
It's like it's giving you diamonds.
Yeah, but it's totally fine. It's not glass. It's you could eat it or not, or drink it. You kind of chew on it if you do it, but it kind of gives you like this acidity, like candy flavor. I don't know. It's okay. I do it. I almost always have a little bit, but I know it's off-putting, but it's not actually that much of a problem. And
it's probably a good idea. Somehow I'm getting hair in my mouth.
It's also really, really, really hard. Like we've had many times where something starts to crystallize. We cold stabilize it. White wines are so hard. We stabilize it for heat. We stabilize it for cold. And protein is heat. All right, so we stabilize it in those two ways, and we put it in the bottle, and then it's back up to room temperatures. Call it 58 degrees in our cellar for months on end. And then here 6 months later, all of a sudden it starts to have like you flick it up, and there's all these tiny little like glittery things in there, and it's like, dude, I swore we had it totally stable, and it is so hard for Chris and I have not figured this out, and it's the one thing that makes me doubt if I know how to make wine.
Oh,
over and over again every year. I'm like,
but your wines are fantastic, and your white wines are really incredible.
But they're not as stable as I want them to be, and they.
Well, I do love how fanatical you guys are, and that you will pull corks and dump it out, try it again, clean it up. I think that your fastidious nature is really incredible, and I admire you and Chris so much for that. And I think people love your whites. I mean, anybody that's getting a white wine from you knows how much passion has gone into it. And so I think that that's a huge mark of your winemaking.
Try not to hold it against me if you get one with a little a little something in it.
This is so sad.
I really, really try. But the whites, like reds, I feel like I'm a good winemaker. Whites just blow my mind every time.
All right, guys. From now on, I'm not gonna put him on camera after a 6-hour horrible, stressful.
I was
drive.
gonna say this either way. I was gonna say this either way.
All right, let's move on to question number 3. Do you need to blow your nose?
No, I'm okay. I am dripping, but I'm okay.
Oh my God. That's so classy. All right. So question number 3 is how it's kind of in the same realm, which is why I threw this one in there, is how do you use a decanter, and why should you even use one?
A decanter was made for this.
Exactly.
100%. All right, so that sludge at the bottom of a red wine. So if you're storing your wine bottle like you're supposed to be on its side like this, all the sludge will end up right here in the line. And all you would do is you would pop the cork and then just slowly pour it into a decanter. And you would use a candle. You would actually take off this.
If you want to be really fancy.
You would take the capsule off. You would use a candle on the other side or a light or whatever, and you would watch until the little stream of sediment starts filtering its way through, and then you would pull it up, and it's
kind of this bottom section that you end up with, which to most people is Karen. She's in the way. Karen got a makeover. But it's this bottom section, and that looks like a horrifying amount to leave in the bottle. But
most of it's punt, but there is 3 or 4 ounces.
Punt. That's the divot here.
Exactly, and that's taking up most of that space. And then also, there's somebody in the party that'll drink it. So that's me, and a few other people I know, not Michelle maybe, but some people.
I don't care for the extra love. So
could have fooled me.
Hey! Oh, wow! PG. So let's talk about decanters. Okay, maybe next time we're on a long drive, we're gonna be like, we're gonna pre-record. So decanters. There are a lot of really fancy decanters. One of the things that I think is really important is how easy it is to fill the damn thing and how easy it is to pour out of it. So we had an incredibly beautiful one that was a wedding gift that was really lovely and worked great.
Big base and then that.
Yeah, I mean, the wine tasted beautifully, and the reason why you're doing that is that it does increase the aging of the wine. So a wine that you're supposed to store and take care of, and then but you can't wait, because that's really my problem. I get too excited about the wine, and I'm like, let's taste it now. And so you pour it a specific way where as you pour, it hits the back side of the decanter, and
so it's the high side.
Out.
You want to pour into the low side, so it hits the high side.
And it fans out. Yeah. So if it's just, you don't want to just pour it into the thing. You're not doing it any justice. It's actually meant to fan around the neck of the decanter and into the base. It's really beautiful too. But that's an important part of it. So you want to learn, you can YouTube anything. So you see that and learn how to do that. But then at the end, it can be very difficult to get one of those really wide ones, the rest of the wine out and into the glass and not all over the table. So there's ones that are a little bit fatter, that aren't quite so thin. Those are easier. There's also now ones that are crazy shapes, and supposedly that helps aerate for even more so, which aeration is what you're doing. But then they can get really awkward and you can break them. They're hard to clean. So I suggest, especially if this is your first decanter, go simple.
Yeah.
You can get a great.
They all
really
pretty much
simple,
do the same thing.
Yeah,
You don't have to worry about
you
it.
can get a really simple Riedel one at like Target or Amazon. They don't have to cost a lot of money. But you can see that shape and go from there. But it is helpful, and it does separate the gunk in the bottom of the bottle.
Right. It helps you from the bottle stage into there, and then once again, it'll help you from the decanter into your wine glass or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But
Exactly.
it'll add a couple years, 3 years maybe, to your
Kind of
to
nice
the
if you
aging
have
process.
something special that you've been
Yeah.
excited about. All right. Next question, our final question for today is somebody, poor guy, he says he made wine at home.
Uh-oh.
He followed all the directions he thinks, but it just ended up being vinegar. And he would like to know what he possibly did wrong.
Yeah. It was probably exposed to too much air. During fermentation, no problem with the air, but that's 1 week. Everyone thinks it's 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. 1 week. After that, you kind of want to keep it off the air. So it probably just had too much exposure to oxygen.
I think a lot of home winemakers don't have the right stuff.
It's also...
I hear a lot that, I made it in a bucket. Well, how do you close off that bucket?
Right. For fermentation, for primary fermentation, bucket's fine. Bucket's great. That's basically what we do. We have a giant bucket, stainless steel, but it's 1,000 gallons or something.
But if you're aging in the same bucket.
So but as soon as that primary so you need to know when your fermentation is almost over, and then pull it off of the skins, and then keep the air out. It'll continue to work a little bit, so you'll run, and if it's in a carboy, it'll run, you'll see your bubbler still going. But, and then, a month and a half after you've put it in the carboy, then you want to make sure you add SO2, or as home winemakers know it, Camden tablets. Yeah, it's just SO2 basically, but, those are the sulfites. But at that point, you need the oxygen the heck out of there. And to be honest, that's the number one thing that most professional winemakers run into as well. That's our biggest problem is VA, which is volatile acidity vinegar. It smells like vinegar. It smells like acetone, like nail polish remover. It smells like...
That's what I pick it up as every time.
Yeah.
And I'm super sensitive to it, and it drives me nuts.
There's 100 other things that can go wrong, but that's the main one that goes wrong for everybody, and it's really hard to make it not happen. It's there in every single wine you've ever had.
It's just how prominent it is.
It's just how prominent.
It actually does give some structure.
Exactly, but your goal as a home winemaker and as a professional winemaker is to make that number as low as humanly possible, because sometimes you'll push into that gray zone, no matter who you are or what kind of equipment you got.
It seems to me that the testing, I mean, a lot of...
It's nice to be able to test all the time, and then and then there's some grapes, like we don't do, we never made a Cabernet Franc again. We tried it 3 times from southern New Mexico. We could not get it to work, but up in northern New Mexico it finally worked. It doesn't have as high a VA content when it gets to us for whatever reason, and we're able to make it work.
Oh, and it's so good.
Another one is our Pinot Noir is always hard. We have to be so careful. We have to be tasting it every week to make sure it's not happening.
Spectacular too. Yeah, I love both of those. That's a sign of a very talented couple of winemakers in my book.
Zinfandel. We don't do a Zinfandel because we've never been able to make it not have VA.
Mm-hmm.
I could try again. I should try again someday, but I just, try it a few times and, do everything you can to make it not happen. And if it's still there, it's hard.
Well, you guys have so many wines that you make so well that if there's one that's uber challenging that you don't really care about.
Oh, one huge key is make sure you have higher acidity. If you have higher acidity,
That's interesting.
Something with lower acidity grapes, it's almost impossible to make sure that they don't get it. Part of the reason we like high acidity wines is because it makes us look like good winemakers. Less problems.
Wow.
But
So
also
modest.
because
and that is why they pay me to stand in front of groups of people and say how awesome they are and talk about all the awards and say this is a stunning wine and just how incredibly impressive their talent is. 22 years of busting their butts to create a wine and then immediately turn around and say, this is what I like about it, this is what I want to do different next vintage. That's also part of the problem when you see them at winemaker dinners is I have to sometimes
we're too honest. We're like
pinch Jesse under the arm. I'm like,
oh, you should see this next
phenomenal
vintage. I know you're drinking the 2018, but you should see the 2019. That's going to be amazing. Everyone's like, oh, well, I was going to love this one.
I was going to buy a case, but I guess I'll wait.
Dude, I've seen so many, with the camera a little closer here, I've seen so many people. My parents said that Karen, the Fern, is doing great and says hi.
Oh, yes. So, Jane and Dick.
Pineapple Fern is no longer Karen.
But
I also see cousin
Karen,
Joey Aiken is over here.
Well, so
this
wait.
Is cool.
Karen is at home being babysat by Jane and Dick.
My parents.
Yes. And so we're super grateful, and she's having a fabulous time vacationing without her parents. I don't know. But I also thought it was funny to think of the pineapple as Karen, and it's kind of like when a white girl goes to the islands and gets her hair like cornrows.
Oh, no,
and
yeah.
then it's like,
Such a bad idea.
Was a bad idea. It's like Karen turned into a pineapple.
No, Karen, don't do it. Don't do it. Bad idea. Works good on some people, not on you.
All right, I'm guessing we are probably past even time.
We are. We're pushing it here.
Okay, so and we're just loopy. Oh man.
Well, we're back up at altitude, man. 7,300 feet or whatever we are.
Yeah, and cold. So we left the jungle where we were sitting around a beautiful pool and having a great time.
With macaws flying over, of course.
Oh, man.
and toucans.
Way too expensive drinks being served poolside, and it was so nice. And so now we show up in shorts, and we're like, ooh, and it's freezing here. And so we now have a fire in the other room. This house is really, really cute. We did an Airbnb so that we're up on the hill overlooking the central old part of Las Casas, and we get to meander in every day. So we're going to be here for a while. And so you're going to get to see probably his backdrop. Maybe we'll change it up.
We'll probably change it up. Well, this light's pretty good. This might be the best light we've ever had. I don't know. Maybe even in our house.
Maybe we could do a fireside chat.
We could do a fireside chat. We did a fireside chat before with no fire, but we could do one with a real fire this time.
Where was that?
Last time we were in Las Casas 2 weeks ago.
I don't remember.
Or 1 week ago.
I don't remember where I've been.
For Thanksgiving Eve.
Oh, yeah. All right. On Thanksgiving, we drove to Palenque, and we did manage to find fantastic roasted chicken. No, we did chicken.
We did chicken that day.
It was in place of the turkey.
And then all the other days I had tacos.
Yeah,
it was so good. All right, you guys.
All right, so next week. We are going to get into Tempranillo around the world. So send in your questions. Tell us about your favorite Tempranillo, where it's from, what you love about it. Tempranillo is a grape that we keep running into here in Mexico, and some really good examples. So we're gonna try ours against some that we're finding down here, and some really fun examples.
Apparently we're gonna go shopping. All right, you guys. Cheers. Have a good one.
See you next week.
Where did we turn it off here?
And down at the bottom it says finish.
Finish,
yeah.
right.